In this presentation, you will learn about feminist anthropologists from the West. Margaret Mead was a key figure in the second wave of feminist anthropology, since her work clearly distinguished between sex and gender as categories of anthropological thought. Her theories were influenced by ideas borrowed from Gestalt psychology, that subfield of psychology that analyzed personality as an interrelated psychological pattern rather than a collection of separate elements. Her work separated the biological factors from the cultural factors that controls human behavior and personality development. Her work influenced Rosaldo's and Lamphier's attempts to build a framework for the emerging subdiscipline. Mead's work analyzed pervasive sexual asymmetry that fit well with their reading of the ethnographic literature. Margaret Mead's work helped both the feminist movement as well as anthropology. She was also very vocal about her stand and expressed it on several platforms. One of her important contributions is Sex and Temperament in Three Primitive Societies. This book laid the foundations for the feminist movement, suggesting that gender roles were socially constructed and not biologically based. In a broader sense, coming of age in Samoa is about nature versus nurture and the turn away from genetic determinism. She pointed out that it is a culture that determines individual behavior than genes or racial superiority. Mead became the second female president of AAAS in 1975 after Mina Rees in 1971. Mead was a key figure in AAAS work to address social issues, particularly in bringing up inequalities towards gay and lesbian scientists. Under her leadership, the AAAS Council noted that because of this discrimination, some scientists are denied the opportunity to practice their profession and others are treated inequitably in terms of salary, promotion, or assigned duties. As AAAS president, she oversaw the passage of a policy deploring discrimination against queer scientists. These pioneers have laid the foundation for several other scientists, anthropologists to come and express their views openly, a space to write about it. It is because of these scholars a foundation has been laid out. They fought, they took chances. As a result, others got encouraged, and that is why we still read them and look at them as classical writers. Rob Benedict. Benedict, a student of Franz Boas, was an early and influential female anthropologist. Her doctorate was from Columbia University in 1923. Her fieldwork with Native Americans and other groups led her to develop the configurational approach to culture, seeing cultural systems as favoring certain personality types among different societies. Along with Margaret Mead, she is one of the most prominent female anthropologists of the first half of this century. One of her important works is the book Patterns of Culture. Zora Neale Hurston, the first African American to chronicle African American folklore and voodoo, Hurston studied anthropology at Barnard in the 1920s under Franz Boas. This encouraged her interest in African American folklore. Data for her scholarly work and creative writing came from growing up in an all black Ethanville, Florida. She drew upon the keen insights and observations gained from her anthropological research in crafting her fictional work. The only black student at Barnard, when she attended, she received a BA degree in 1928. Two of her anthropological works are Mules and Men and Tell My Horse. Hurston's contribution to anthropology resided not merely in her superior ability to provide vivid imagery of Black culture, but also in her pioneering efforts towards theorizing the African diaspora and her methodological innovations. Phyllis Caberry is a social anthropologist who worked with Bronislaw Malinowski while earning her PhD. Caberry's work focused on women in many different societies, especially in Australia and Africa. While placing great emphasis on the study of religion, she also examined relationships between men and women. Eleanor Leacock adopted a Marxist approach in her ethnographies, and she argued that capitalism is the source of much female subordination. She also challenged Julian Stewart's work on hunting and trapping. Louise Lamphere worked with Michelle Rosaldo to edit Women, Culture and Society. This was the first volume to address the anthropological study of gender and women's status. Shelley Ortner. She is one of the early proponents of feminist anthropology, constructing an explanatory model for gender asymmetry, which was based on the premises that the subordination of women is a universal, that is, cross cultural phenomenon. In an article published in 1974, Is Female to Male as Nature is to Culture? She takes a structuralist approach to the question of gender inequality. She argued that women have always been symbolically associated with nature. Since nature is subordinate to men, women are subordinate to men. She suggests that women's role as childbearer makes them natural creators, while men are cultural creators. Ortner points out that men without high rank are excluded from things like women are excluded from them. Margaret Conkey was one of the first archaeologists to introduce feminist theory into that subdiscipline. She is a professor of anthropology at the University of California, Berkeley. Michelle Rosaldo and Ortner offered an integrated set of explanations, each at a different level, for the universal subordination of women. Rosaldo argued that because women frequently participate in behaviors that limit them, one must perform an analysis of the larger system in order to understand gender inequality. Nancy Sheffer Hughes is a feminist ethnographer whose work questions the idea of a universal definition for man and woman. Her book, Death Without Weeping: The Violence of Everyday Life in Brazil, criticized the concept of innate maternal bonding as women were forced to favor infants who would survive due to harsh living conditions. This book is now regarded by many as a classic in medical anthropology. Gail Rubin is an activist and influential theorist of sex and gender politics. She introduced the sex and gender system, which distinguishes biology from behavior in the same way Mead did with her work. She shaped her ideas from works by Marx, Engels, Levi Strauss, and Freud. Leila Abu Lughod seeks to demonstrate that culture is boundless. In writing Women's Worlds, she shared Bedouin women's stories and showed that they find advantages in a society that separates gender. Her works, like many others, dispel the misunderstandings many Western feminists have about Islam and Hinduism. Thank you for watching this presentation. Do like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments about this presentation or any other topics you would like to learn more about.